All right, America, still here with your homeboy first for the realest, most entertaining sports show in the game. That is, put it on something. Make sure y'all subscribe, and put your people on it. You feel me? I am privileged to still have my OG here with me, Liegh McInnis. And this topic is a topic that I knew without a doubt that my OG was going to have the knowledge on this. America, if you happen to miss this is really what we should be talking about in HBCU world with all the vitriol that's going back. This is the one right here. Okay. Tate Reeves was asked about Brett Favre's welfare scandal. Now, if you've been under a rock, you need to come from up under it. Brett Favre was a part of, they're saying, the biggest fraud in Mississippi history.
Yep.
He's a part of it. Okay. Y'all know he got money for speeches he ain't give. He got money for some company that he was trying to do and get money off of. It ain't like no non-profit, nothing like that. He was trying to get some money. And also, this multi-millionaire got money, welfare funds, to build a volleyball stadium at Southern Miss. Okay? Maybe y'all hear me. This multi-millionaire got TANF funds, temporary assistance for needy family funds, to build a volleyball stadium at Southern Miss. Instead of answering that question like a real governor should, hey, it just happens to be the biggest scandal in your state's history. Well, financial scandal, because we know Mississippi got a whole lot of other scandalous stuff. He ducked that and decided to take a shot at Jackson State. Basically, he was saying, well, that doesn't seem like, we're talking about the welfare fund, doesn't seem like a use of state funds that I would approve. But I don't like Jackson State trying to use state funds to build a stadium either. I'm against that as well. I think it's normally done through alumni donations, and that's how it should go. See, his voice was even low talking about Brett, but then we started talking about Jackson State. So I knew to come to my OG about that, because he can give me some information that I don't even got. And y'all know I'm a historian, but I had to come to the OG on this. Talk to us, OG, about your thoughts on these comments and whatever else you got for me.
So, both my grandmothers used to say, a lie don't care who tell it. And this is the best example, because I'm going to show you that Governor old Tater Tot, has lied. So I'll begin with 2 points about the governor's erroneous comments. First, old Governor Tate Tot is equating the stealing of funds from the neediest Mississippians by the richest white races to the normal use of funds to build a facility for an HBCU. That equation in and of itself should tell you everything you need to know about the state of racism in Mississippi. But for my second point, allow me to give you some history. The VET was built, right? Veterans Memorial Stadium was built in 1950, primarily as an alternative site for Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and USM when they played games against major opponents, because their stadiums at the time could not hold larger crowds. So it was actually state funds that built the VET for white schools. So old Governor Tater Tot is a liar. Yet, as each school was able to build its own stadium with sizable funding from the state, as well as then from some private donations, none of the schools needed the VET. So when the VET was finally designated as JSU's home stadium, either 2011 or 2012, white Mississippians had already declared open warfare on the city of Jackson to ensure that they could do anything possible to aid in the demise of Jackson, such as rejecting any federal funding that could aid the city and making sure not to engage in economic enterprise in the city. So yes, the University of Mississippi Medical Center, UMMC, that sits across the street from Jackson State, it needs the land on which the VET sits to expand. But annexing the vet is simply a part of a larger white Mississippi plan to ensure that Jackson and Jackson State never become major self-sustaining entities of economic expansion for Afro-Mississippians. And now let me add this one final point. Prior to 2013, both the vet and Mississippi Coliseum were used for Mississippi football and basketball playoffs. But immediately after the vet was transferred to Jackson State, the Mississippi High School Sports Association moved the state basketball and football playoffs from both of these venues to ensure that the city of Jackson generates no revenue from those events and to ensure that JSU is not able to use the vet to recruit Mississippi players. So old Tater Tot's comments about not wanting to build Jackson State a new stadium is him signaling to the vast majority of white Mississippians that he will continue to work to do whatever he can to limit and destroy Jackson State and the city of Jackson. And I'll come back because I know you probably have a follow-up before I get to my last points.
Well, my follow-up is dealing with something that you told me in that interview I did with you. And Everybody Got a Story. America, if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. It's 6 parts. It is amazing because my OG has lived an amazing life. But you said to me, and I don't know if I've heard anybody say this in that way, but it embodies Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey. I keep telling folks that they would snap on white supremacists, but every time I listen to them speak, they be snapping on us more of the speech than on the white supremacists.
Yep.
Okay. And so what you said was you are against white supremacy and black ineptitude.
Yep.
And I wanted to pull your coat on that notion when it comes to us. Like you said, he's signaling to the racist that I got y'all. But he should also, in my opinion, that should also be a signal to us and a call, not to arms, so to speak,
right?
But to metaphorically a call to arms in terms of we must make sure we're voting in local elections, gubernatorial elections. We can't just decide we're going to go vote when it's all over MSNBC and CNN. It's time to go vote for the president. And I had to stand in line for at least an hour in the pandemic to vote during the last election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. But when I went down here to vote in a senatorial race,
right,
I walked straight on in there. I mean, no one. I just walked straight on in. So we must do that. If we don't want governors like Tate Reeves and all the rest of them that came before, we must mobilize and we must get our allies to bring their tail out with us to get them out. And another instance of black ineptitude is how we, unlike our forebearers and all these folks that I have so much respect for, unlike them, we have at the top at least way more finances to be able to finance our freedom. Right. Now, the racial wealth gap still exists. Don't get me wrong. Many studies say it's gotten worse since the civil rights movement, matter of fact, okay? But I was just talking about at the very top. I just saw Lil Baby, who I know I got some OGs that watch me and stuff like that. That's a gangster rapper from Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, okay? He just gave $250,000, $250,000 to James Harden. This is a sports show, so sports fan, y'all should know who James Harden is, okay? Playing for the Philadelphia 76ers right now. James Harden is richer than Lil Baby, but he gave that man $250,000. So when I see stuff like that, I'm like, bro, that's the stuff right there that can go to our freedom. Yep. And it's not just you being, it wouldn't just be him being philanthropic. If we can get if the old rich boy put together a sponsoring group and say, okay, we're going to sponsor the building of a stadium. Well, it ain't got to be Jackson State, y'all. This is black people. Wherever, pick Valley, go pick whatever HBC you want. We gonna sponsor it, and we get the naming rights up there. All that free advertising that comes with that, because that's what the rich white people do. They spend millions and millions of dollars. See the Caesar Superdome. It used to be called the Staples Center.
Yep.
The Smoothie King Center. Like, they spend millions of dollars to go into this stuff, but we don't study that, peep the game, and see we got black people in this country. I'm talking about the rich black folk, and they ain't seeing you got black institutions right here with already built stadiums that maybe need to be refurbished, or campuses that need new buildings. You come in and use your dollars to that, and we won't have to deal with suckers like this, Tate Reeves, at least as much. We still deserve our tax money in the state funds, but we won't need as much from these suckers as he thinks we need. He thinks we can't do it without him.
Yep. And that's the problem. That's the problem is we need, like you said, it's not just philanthropic. It's learning to invest in ourselves to turn a profit. Right? When you invest in a new stadium at an HBCU, you're investing in a multiplex building. It's not just going to have. I remember when they had the plan for the new stadium, the Dome Stadium for 50,000 in Jackson State. It was going to house football, basketball. It was also going to house concerts. It was going to be a convention center. It's going to do a lot of different things. And so that's what you're saying. You're saying that when we talk about giving back to the black community, giving back is not just about empty one-time deposits. Giving back is also about investing in an infrastructure, investing in manpower, investing in a way. I remember you talked about Magic Johnson investing in the theaters, which I never thought I'd live to see the day. Jackson, Mississippi used to have 6 theaters. Now it has none. And so who can come in and invest, right, in that? So I think that's the other thing. That's the other discussion. And that's why people like you are so important, that we need to have a discussion about giving back, right? It's not just about making tax-deductible donations. It's about how can I create our own infrastructure, right? We need to really understand. It's not about giving a man a fish. It's about teaching a man how to fish. And if we can do that kind of investing, the kind of investing where we're teaching ourselves how to fish in our own pond, right, then we won't have to worry about, and like you said, we still want to just do on our taxes, right? We don't want taxation without representation.
No doubt.
But what we also need to understand is that Governor Tate, as you said, can make these kind of statements because he fully believes that we don't have the ability to fend for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he thinks we need him to be the savior, just like with the water crisis. Okay, in America, I'm gonna chime in. I can't just do a little clip on that, America. Okay, I gotta do a separate video about that. But we won the battle with that. We got water. Okay, we need water. But in terms of the war of defeating this notion of white supremacy, we lost, because now he gets to act like he saved the day. And in this case, it's the same thing. He thinks really in his mind that Jackson State University cannot get their own stadium without a handout from the government. That's what he's thinking. You know what I'm saying? And that notion, as my OG stated, that's one of them dog whistles. You know, them dog whistles. They like to call under Reagan, what they came up with, welfare queens.
Yep, that's it.
All right. So you're on the tip of the government, but they don't say that about Brett Favre, who literally is a welfare queen. That man, a literal welfare queen. You know what I'm
saying? And the other part about this, I would take some of that data and go another way with it. And what I'm about to say now is more for people who don't live in Mississippi, because I hear a lot of folk who don't live in Mississippi make statements about Mississippi. Here's something that y'all need to understand. Based on the 2022 census, Mississippi is 58% white and 38% black, which means that white folks in Mississippi still have a supermajority. Additionally, 90% of white Mississippians vote Republican to ensure that they maintain their supermajority. Based on these numbers, Brett Favre and other rich white folks who stole from the neediest Mississippians will never face justice in a Mississippi court, because we live in a time in which the majority of white Americans and the supermajority of white Southerners have declared open warfare on all people of color, especially African people. Furthermore, based on this data, because white people have had and continue to have an overwhelming majority in the state of Mississippi, all of the problems, I need the people outside of Mississippi to hear me, all of the problems of Mississippi are created and maintained by white people. So for those of y'all outside the state of Mississippi who like to disparage Mississippi, you should be clear that it's white people who continue to keep Mississippi at the bottom and not black people. Or as both of my grandmothers used to tell me, racist white folks will hurt themselves to hurt black people. So the continued terrible condition of Mississippi exists because white Mississippians would rather be at the bottom of everything to ensure that they are able to perpetuate the second-class citizenship of Afro-Mississippians. This is why the governor of Mississippi, old Tate Reeves himself, and the white Mississippi legislators continue to withhold the funding needed to both repair and update Jackson's water and piping system, because they want Jackson to relinquish the municipal airport to a majority white city. See, everything that has and is happening in Mississippi is planned and designed to maintain white supremacy. That's why when I say that every touchdown in Ole Miss is a touchdown for white supremacy, every touchdown in Mississippi State is a touchdown for white supremacy, and every touchdown in USM is a touchdown for white supremacy, because it is primarily the graduates of these and other white Mississippi schools that serve in the state legislature and continue to perpetuate the second-class citizenships of African Americans. One example. The Ayers case was not about HBCU simply asking the state legislature for money for the sake of getting more money. The Ayers case was about HBCUs meeting all of the benchmarks required for increasing their state funding, and the state refusing to provide that increased funding, even though the HBCUs had met those benchmarks. Jackson State University became a Research 2 institution. Again, one of only 11 HBCUs that's a Research 2 institution. And the state of Mississippi still refused to increase our funding despite the scholarship we had continued to produce. That's a fact that cannot be refuted. So when you understand that information about the Ayers case and about Mississippi history in general, you understand why the vet is such an essential and politicized issue.
Well, OG, I appreciate you for that history lesson. I know it's a lot of real ones that feed on that too. You got something else, OG?
One last thing. This just popped into my mind. Okay. And this is also about how black people, when we don't know history, we take false narratives and we blame black people for problems that we didn't have anything to do with. Mm-hmm. For all of the people who blame the parking issues at the vet on Jackson State, you should engage in some research before opening your mouth about that issue. How can Jackson State be blamed for the issues of parking when we did not design the venue or the parking? When the vet was constructed in 1950, it had only 21,000 seats with a parking capacity of 4,000 spaces. That's not bad, but it really should have had 10,000 parking spaces. Generally speaking, your parking spaces should be at least half the amount of your seating capacity. So if a stadium seats 60,000, the parking should have at least 30,000 spaces. However, over time, as the vet's seating capacity was expanded, the white folk expanding the seating capacity never expanded the parking spaces. So that's the problem created by the ineptitude of white Mississippians and not JSU. And here's what's even crazy about this issue. Brother First, did you know that when the vet was constructed, that UMC across the street didn't even exist?
No,
so remember, the vet was constructed in 1950. UMMC wasn't constructed till 1955. So white folks had 5 years to improve the parking issue and never did. Moreover, when UMC was first constructed, it only had one building, and none of the other buildings existed around the vet. So it was white people who had more than enough time and space to construct proper parking as well as proper driving routes to make it easier to get in and out the vet, but chose not to do so. Therefore, this is another Mississippi problem created by the myopic vision of white folks that's being blamed on black folks. And far too many black folks perpetuate this lie, because when you've been trained to hurt yourself, you ultimately believe everything bad that's been told about yourself. That's it.
Well, there it is, America. And again, I appreciate you, OG, for that history on the vet. Y'all chime in, America. Y'all already know. Y'all, if you saw my other segment on this topic, y'all see how I feel about this issue. Okay. But I appreciate you, OG, once again. And y'all chime in, America. Tell us what y'all thought about Tate Reeves sending shots at Jackson State. Put it on something.
Thank you so much for watching my daddy's YouTube channel. Make sure you like, share, and turn on your post notifications. Okay, how do I do it?